Week 16 NFL Power Rankings. Welcome back to the GMG Channel. It's your host, me, and I'm still trying to figure out my lighting, my setup. As you can see, I moved the bookshelf that was behind me to right over here. It's a little dark in here, but I kind of like it better. I don't know. Thank you for being patient. Let's go ahead and get into these rankings. If you've been following this channel for a while, you're familiar with how I do this every week. However, as we get closer to the playoffs, I felt it necessary to change some of these categories. I don't feel like the category and the 6 and 11 category really makes sense as we look forward. So what I have done is kept Super Bowl conversation and comfy playoffs the same. I've gotten ahead and changed the category to wild cards. These are my predictions for teams that will make the playoffs, but it will be a struggle to get there. And then I have the just missed category replacing the 6 and 11 category. These are teams that I believe will not make the playoffs. And finally, the wins the draft category stays the same, but this is just going to be every team that has been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. These categories just help me be a little more predictive, and I think will add some entertainment value to this series. So as you can see at the bottom, these are all the teams that right now are mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. I don't think the Bears are, but with their loss to the Browns, I don't think with 5 wins they have any realistic shot to make it. We will start with the Falcons, who lost to the 1 and whatever Carolina Panthers this weekend. They have the Colts, the Bears, and the Saints remaining, and I don't see them winning all of those games, and I think that's what it will take to make the playoffs. So I think the Atlanta Falcons will miss the playoffs this year. A very convincing win for Baltimore, and this time on the road at Jacksonville. They do have the Dolphins and the 49ers still on their schedule, along with the Steelers. I think it will tell us a lot as we look to the playoffs and the Super Bowl. They've already made the playoffs, but I do still think this is a Super Bowl contending team. The Bills have the Chargers, the Patriots, and the Dolphins left, and I think all 3 of those games are winnable. So I am actually going to move the Bills, even though they're sitting at a wild card spot right now, to comfy playoffs. I think they win at worst 2 of those games, and that's enough to make it in. And if you guys weren't going to scold me in the comments, I'd probably move the Bills up to Super Bowl conversation. I think they have a legitimate shot to run the tables in the AFC. You know what? Scold me in the comments. I don't care, because when we come back to this video in February and the Bills are sitting there competing for the Super Bowl, I'll say I said it in Week 16. The Bengals have the Steelers, the Chiefs, and the Browns, and what makes this tricky is all 3 of those opponents are also going to be fighting for a playoff spot. I'm very nervous about the Bengals because of that schedule. I think they've done more than they were expected to do with Jake Browning. They have exceeded the expectation, but I am very, very nervous, especially with the Colts technically not in right now, with the Bills technically not in right now, with Houston technically not in right now. I'm a little worried, and I think their schedule is going to get the best of them, so I'm going to make a prediction, although it is a little wild, that the Bengals will end up missing the playoffs, and it's no fault of theirs, bad luck with injuries, and a really tough remaining schedule. The Browns have the Texans, Jets, and the Bengals still remaining, and I guess since I put the Bengals down in the just missed category, I ought to put the Browns here. I think the Browns' schedule is a little bit easier. I think they can get a win at Houston, which will really set them apart from that wild card, give and take, pull and tug, if you will, and I think they win against the Jets, and it will all come down to this Bengals game in Week 18. So give me the Browns for the wild card spot in the AFC. The Cowboys have made the playoffs and now jump ahead of the Eagles in the NFC East, but they did lose quite badly to the Buffalo Bills this weekend. Comfy playoffs still, but I'll move them out of the Super Bowl category for you all. The Broncos have the Patriots, the Chargers, and the Raiders still on their schedule, and that's 2 wins, maybe 3. This is a very tricky spot as well for me, not for the Broncos. It's actually quite easy. That would put them at 10 wins if they win out, which I think would be enough to make it to the wild card. So I'm going to put the Broncos in the playoffs after starting 1-5. Quite a feat, although they did not look great against the Lions. Comfy playoffs for them, a team that has been kind of up and down, but 40 points against the Broncos this last Saturday. They may be a team to watch out for in the playoffs. The Packers have the Panthers, the Vikings, and the Bears, which really is not that difficult of a remaining schedule. I just don't know if I'm convinced, though. After their loss at home to Tampa Bay, I think they're going to have to win all 3 of those games if they want to make it in, and I think that is just unlikely with the way they're playing as of late. So I'm going to put the Packers in the just miss category for now. The Titans did get a much-needed win against Tennessee this week, and that was with Case Keenum, their backup quarterback. I don't know if C.J. Stroud will play this week. I would have to imagine he does. They play the Browns, then they play the Titans again, then they see the Colts in Indianapolis for the final game of the year, which I think will define a lot and probably define the playoffs for this team. I just think that the battle is too much for them right now. It's a great year for the Texans, an overachieving year for the Texans, but because of how thick this AFC playoff race is, I'm going to have the Texans just missing the playoffs. I'm not confident, though. The Colts have the Falcons, the Raiders, and the Texans, and that is a schedule that I see them winning 2 more games. That would be a total of 10 wins, which I think, like I said with the Broncos, gets it done. So give me the Colts as a wild card team. Although the Jaguars did just lose, they have the Buccaneers, the Panthers, and the Titans. I would have to imagine that they win at least 2 of those games. They are tied right now for the top of the AFC South with the Colts, but they do have the tiebreaker over the Colts. I'm going to put Jags in comfy playoffs just because I think their schedule sets up nicely for some momentum going in, but they didn't show me a ton against Baltimore Sunday night. The Chiefs have the Raiders, the Bengals, and the Chargers, which I think is at least 2 wins for them, though in the AFC West, comfy playoffs for the Chiefs. I'm not sure why I didn't have the Chargers down here to start the video. This is where things start to get complex for the NFC. We have the Rams, who are now in the playoffs if we started today with 7 wins. Seattle is right behind them with 7 wins, but Seattle is on the losing end of the tiebreaker against the Rams. However, the Rams have the Saints, the Giants, and the 49ers. Now, this is where it gets really complex. I think they win those 2 games. Then they have a matchup with the 49ers. They'll be sitting at 9 wins. The 49ers, do they rest their starters that game? Do they say, you know what, we're in the playoffs, we probably have the 1 seed, we'll chill for this last week? Or do they say, here's a division rival that we can put out of the playoffs with a win, let's go ahead and play our starters, keep our momentum, we're going to have a bye next week anyway. Really complex, okay? I'm going to say that the 49ers beat the Rams the last week of the season, and that leaves the Rams at 9 wins, and 9 wins is not enough to make the playoffs. That's my prediction. So I'm going to say the Rams are a just missed of the playoffs, but like I said, that's just a super gutsy pick. It could go the complete other way. The Raiders have shown up in a big way since their firing of Josh McDaniels, but it's too much of an uphill climb to make the playoffs. They have to win out, and then they have to have a whole host of things happen. They're going to miss the playoffs, but I think it was a good year for them, and I think they have a lot to build on going into 2024. This is another interesting piece. The Dolphins have the Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Bills. That is 3 games that they could very well lose, and that would put them at 10 wins. And at the wild card, because I predict the Broncos are going to be sitting at 10 wins. I think the Browns are going to be sitting at 10 wins. I think the Colts are going to be sitting at 10 wins. So it's going to be really confusing. There's going to be a lot of tiebreakers. This is a really, really competitive and really good year for the NFL. I realize right now I have 4 wild card teams for the AFC. There's only going to be 3. So yes, I will accept full responsibility that this is going to be incorrect mathematically, but I do think it's going to be 3 out of these 4 teams. The Vikings have the Lions twice and the Packers once. I think, it's realistic to say that the Vikings lose 2 of those games. Their loss in overtime to the Bengals was a massive, massive punch to their playoff hopes. So I'm going to say the Vikings just missed the playoffs. The Saints have the Rams, the Buccaneers, and the Falcons, and really all we need to talk about is that game against the Buccaneers. I think that's the game that ends up deciding that division, and that game will be played in Tampa Bay, and I think I give the edge to Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield and how they are playing lately. So, with that being said, I'm going to put the Saints in the just missed category, but again, I'm fully aware I could be very wrong. The Eagles have secured a playoff spot, but I do think this team is full of question marks. Speaking of question marks, the Steelers lose to the Colts. Who's playing QB? Is Mike Tomlin really motivated? Just missing the playoffs, I think, is the most realistic shot for the Steelers. The Seahawks get a massive result on Monday night last night against Philadelphia, and that had to boost their playoff odds by over double, I would imagine. They have the Titans, the Steelers, and the Cardinals left. 3 very winnable games. The only thing that concerns me is that Cardinals game. The Cardinals have been putting up points at home. They've been playing well at home, and I can see Seattle dropping that game, a game they're probably going to be favored by 4 to 6 points. We will be optimistic, and we will say the Seahawks win that game. That would put them at a 1-game advantage over the Rams, because I'm predicting the Rams are going to lose the last week to the 49ers. But like I said, that game could go either way depending on what the 49ers decide to do with their starters. So super complex, super wild. Speaking of wild, Seahawks in the wild card. I know I have a general distaste of the 49ers. It's in my Seahawks 12th man blood. But Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, it's all too strong. Brock Purdy has weapons galore. The 3 games they lose are games that Deebo Samuel was not in, and I do think that matters. If this team can stay healthy, they're in the Super Bowl conversation. Like I said with the Saints, I do think Tampa Bay has the upper hand, so they will win the NFC South and make the playoffs. Now, this is normally where I show you the chart with all the colors on it and tell you where the movers, shakers, and money makers are. But since I changed the categories, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do from here on out is just talk playoffs. And right now I have 14 teams in the playoffs on my chart, which is perfect. However, I have 8 from the AFC and 6 from the NFC, so something is wrong here. What I went ahead and did is I went over to ESPN. They have this playoff machine. You predict the rest of the games, fill out the schedule, and it shoots out what would happen if that actually comes true. And some super interesting things. First of all, the team that makes it in from the NFC that I have left out is the Rams. So we'll go ahead and slide them up based on my predictions for the schedule. Now, the super fascinating thing is if the schedule goes exactly the way I predicted, which it's not going to, you know who would miss the playoffs in the AFC? The Miami Dolphins, which is just bizarre, fascinating, and wild. Who gets in their place? The Houston Texans. What else is interesting is the fact we still have one too many AFC teams, and the team that gets booted out of this list is actually the Denver Broncos. So we'll go ahead and slide them down. Although, I think it's just a matter of tiebreakers and how things shake out. So I can't predict all of that. So that's why I use that playoff prediction machine. So right now, week 16, this would be my playoff prediction Super Bowl conversation. We have the Rams, the Bills, and the 49ers. In comfy playoffs, we have the Cowboys, the Lions, the Jags, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Buccaneers. And for the wild card teams, we have the Browns, the Colts, the Seahawks, the Texans, and the Rams. We are in for a truly wild ending to the NFL season, and I would rather have an unpredictable, chaotic, fascinating playoff experience than one that I can sit here and confidently throw teams onto a tier list. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll accept it, but it should be entertaining nonetheless. If you want to check out my other videos, you can check out this one right here. I tell you why I think Patrick Mahomes is a system QB. I'm kind of trolling, but people are taking it super. I'm not like totally trolling, but I'm kind of trolling, and people are like really eating me up in the comments, insulting my intelligence, me as a human, and the like. So, whatever farms the engagement, whatever gets more views and watch time, because I got to get the watch time, I got to get the subscribers. So you got to be controversial, I guess. Do I believe he's a system QB? Probably not. But the people watching that, they're not going to buy it. So there's my honesty. There's my truth. We'll see you next time.